At its peak, Sears was so dominant that 3 out of every 4 Americans walked through its doors every single year. It built the tallest building in the world. It sold you your fridge, your tools, your insurance, and for a while, it could even sell you your house. And then, one man ran it into the ground. And the really crazy part? He may have done it on purpose. This is the insane truth about Sears. Part 1. The Watch Salesman. In 1886, a young man named Richard Sears was working as a railway station agent in rural Minnesota, barely scraping by, supporting his widowed mother and sisters on a modest wage. Then one day, a crate of watches arrived at the station, unclaimed. Rather than sending them back, Richard bought the whole lot himself and started selling them to other station agents along the rail line. He called his little side business the R.W. Sears Watch Company. Within months, he had made more money than he earned in a year at the railroad. He soon partnered with a watch repairman named Alva Roebuck, and together they moved to Chicago, where they transformed their small watch business into something much bigger. By 1895, the company, now named Sears, Roebuck and Company, published a catalogue with an enormous range of merchandise: sewing machines, bicycles, firearms, clothing, and it was all delivered directly to your door. This was genuinely revolutionary. Rural families who had previously been stuck paying inflated prices at local general stores suddenly had access to low-cost products and far greater choices. America loved it, and Sears grew at a speed that was almost hard to believe. Part 2. They sold you a house. Here's where the story gets really wild. By the early 1900s, Sears wasn't just selling tools and clothing. They decided to sell people something a little bigger: their entire house. Between 1908 and 1942, Sears sold more than 70,000 homes across North America, shipped in giant kits via railroad boxcars. Everything was included: lumber, siding, windows, doors, shingles, flooring, even the kitchen sink. You'd flip through the catalogue, pick a style, place your order, and weeks later, a train would arrive at your local station loaded with the pieces of your future home. The catalogue promised that anyone with basic skills could have their home built in 90 days. Sears also standardized the use of drywall and asphalt to shingles to cut construction costs, and popularized single-family homes at a time when most Americans still lived in multi-generational housing. Think about that for a second. Amazon today will deliver a book to your door overnight, and people consider that impressive. Sears was shipping you an entire house 100 years ago. It was the most dominant retailer the world had ever seen, and they were only getting started. Part 3. The Tower. By the 1960s, Sears had moved aggressively into shopping malls. When the first enclosed malls started going up, Sears was a key anchor tenant for just about every one that was built. The company was everywhere. And to prove it, in 1970, they decided to do something remarkable. They built the tallest building in the world. The 110-story Sears Tower became the world's tallest building at 1,454 feet when it was completed in 1974. It wasn't just an office block, it was a monument to American retail power, a statement to the entire world that said, "We have arrived." At this point, 3 out of 4 Americans visited a Sears store every single year. Think about what that means. Not 1 in 4, not half, 3/4 of an entire country. Sears wasn't just a shop, it was woven into the fabric of American life itself. But here's the thing about building the tallest building in the world. It tends to be a sign that things are about to go wrong. Part 4. The cracks appear. Sears' aura of invincibility was already fading even as the massive monument to its success was going up. The 1974 recession hit the company hard, and profits dropped sharply, almost the moment they moved into their new headquarters. Meanwhile, a quiet revolution was happening in American retail. A company out of Arkansas called Walmart had figured out that everyday Americans didn't need large, fancy department stores. They needed low prices. That was it. By 1990, Walmart pushed past both Sears and Kmart, with annual sales of $32.6 billion, edging out Kmart and Sears in what had been a three-way race. It was the first time in decades that Sears wasn't number one, and rather than treating it as a wake-up call, Sears spent the next decade confused about who it was supposed to be. Was it a discount store, a fashion retailer, a financial services company? The company's own internal motto had always said, "Sears is a family store for middle-class, home-owning America. We are not a fashion store. We are not a discounter." But in trying to compete with everyone, Sears stopped being what it was good at, and customers noticed. By 1994, the company had sold the Sears Tower. The building that was supposed to announce Sears to the world was now someone else's problem, and then came the man who would finish the job. Part 5. Fast Eddie. Eddie Lampert attended Yale, worked at Goldman Sachs in the 1980s, and then started his own investment fund, which he named ES after his own initials. In his early years, his fund was generating average returns of around 25% per year. He was considered a genius, but Lampert wasn't a retailer. He was a hedge fund manager, and he saw Sears not as a beloved American institution, but as a collection of undervalued assets. In 2004, Sears merged with Kmart, and the combined company had 355,000 employees and more than 3,500 stores. Lampert bought control of the whole thing for around $11 billion in 2005. His plan, he said, was a grand revival of the struggling retailer. What actually happened was very different. Lampert installed 36 different management teams and boards inside each department of the company, specifically to foster competition between them. The idea, apparently inspired by the economist Ayn Rand, was that internal competition would drive performance. Instead, it was a disaster. Departments stopped cooperating. Managers started hoarding resources. The company started eating itself from the inside. Meanwhile, Lampert slashed investment in the stores. Not gradually, dramatically. Shelves went unstocked, stores looked run down, staff was cut, employees went to Glassdoor in droves, calling him a CEO egomaniac who was ruining the company. One wrote simply, "Eddie Lampert doesn't know the first thing about retail. He is just a hedge fund manager looking for an exit strategy." But some people suspected there was something far more calculated going on. Part 6. The stripping. At one point, Lampert was simultaneously Sears' CEO, board chairman, transaction partner, landlord, and banker. Read that sentence again. He was selling properties to himself, lending money to a company he ran, collecting management fees from his own hedge fund on top of it all. In January 2019, Sears' major creditors filed a 570-page motion alleging fraudulent activities by Lampert, including falsified financial projections, insider trading, unnecessary spin-offs, and excessive buybacks, all forming an established pattern of stripping value from Sears for personal profit. Valuable brands like Craftsman, the beloved tool brand that Sears had owned since 1927, were sold off. Land's End was spun out. Die Hard went. Piece by piece, the most valuable parts of Sears were extracted and monetized. Annual revenue dwindled from $31 billion to $16.7 billion. The workforce was slashed to 90,000, less than half of what it had been when Lampert took over. By the beginning of 2018, fewer than 900 shops remained from a peak of over 3,500. And in October 2018, the inevitable finally happened. Sears Holdings filed for bankruptcy, closing a chapter in the company's 125-year history. The company that had once sold Americans their homes, their tools, and their future was gone. Part 7. The Aftermath. Here's what makes this story really difficult to sit with. Through all of it, Eddie Lampert still had a personal net worth of $1.1 billion. The creditors, many of them small suppliers who had worked with Sears for decades, got a fraction of what they were owed. Lampert eventually bought the remaining stores out of bankruptcy through his own hedge fund. He was literally the only bidder. A $175 million settlement was eventually reached, paid largely by insurers, to resolve claims that Lampert and other executives had stripped Sears of billions in value to enrich themselves. He denied the allegations throughout. And here's the final twist. Amazon, the company often credited with killing traditional retail, didn't actually kill Sears. Sears had already survived the rise of the internet. It had survived Walmart. It had survived recessions and wars and decades of change. What it couldn't survive was the man who was supposed to save it. Sears was arguably a more dominant force in retail in its time than Amazon is today. It had invented the model: catalogue shopping, home delivery, private label brands, kit homes shipped across a continent. It had done all of it first. The insane truth about Sears isn't that it failed to adapt. It's that it was handed over to someone who had no interest in making it work, and the most recognizable name in American retail history became a ghost, and then nothing at all.